Hey, Sam.
Hey, Bev. What you drinking over there?
I'm drinking a Mad Tree Brunch So Hard.
Ooh, that sounds delicious.
Yeah, it does. It's a Brut Rosé IPA
Ooh,
with hibiscus and rose hips. So it's another one of those champagne IPAs,
yummy.
which I've discovered I'm a big fan of. So I'm excited to give this one a try. What are you drinking over there?
Whew. I just took a sip of it. Ah, okay. So the sounds I just made indicate that it's not good, but that's not true. Um,
It might just be a little one of those like punchy in the faces.
a little bit
Why did I say faces? It sounded like
punchies
feces.
in the faces. Feces?
I'm going to take all that back. Scratch that.
Okay. So this is from Big Lake Brewing, which I think I drank a beer from them last week too. Um, and it is Dark Star, which is a coffee stout. So the stout is what kind of got me, I think. And it is a full-bodied stout brewed with both Kona and Sumatra coffee and then aged on cacao nibs. So it is very hearty, but I figured since I knew that you were having kind of a brunchy themed beverage that I should also have one, considering we are again recording and it's not even noon and we are drinking. So,
I mean, I think that means that we're a hashtag winning.
yeah, I think so too. Yeah.
And P.S., this beer is delicious.
Oh, good.
So
Okay.
now I'm an IPA fan when it has champagne in it.
Yummy. Yeah, this is pretty good. Like once I started sipping it, a little bit more, and once like the head went down a little bit. But yeah, no, it just looks like a Guinness. Kind of smells like a Guinness, but it's not a Guinness.
But it has cacao nibs in it.
And coffee.
Like,
Woohoo.
total tangent over here. I can never pronounce that word right.
Really?
Like, whenever I see it written, I always want to say cacao. I don't know why.
I used to say cocoa, which makes no sense. So it took me a little while too.
Why does this word have to be so hard? So it's cacao.
Cacao, like
Cacao.
papao, but
Cacao.
cacao. And there goes our listenership.
Welcome to We Drink It, We Farm Things.
Woohoo! That's Bev over there.
And that's Sam over there.
And if you couldn't tell, this is a farm comedy podcast that is an adult happy hour for your ears.
We drink adult beverages, talk about the ups and downs of farming things, and give zero clucks about not having the perfect farm life.
We want to create a community for farmers, whether you have a hobby-sized farm or a huge farm, to come listen and feel like you're not so alone in this farm thing.
We keep it real with you and find humor in the mistakes we make, new knowledge we gain, and sometimes we go off on tangents that are non-farming related.
Yes, and speaking of those tangents, we cut a lot of those and stick them up on the Patreon.
Yeah, and the episode outtakes are exclusively for our Patreon peeps.
So check out our Patreon by going to patreon.com/drinkandfarm. We cut all sorts of fun things. Sometimes there's fun exclusive recordings and pictures up there. So make sure you go and check it out.
And speaking of the Patreon, this week our drinks are sponsored by The Colonel, which is Christine Sayani's cat.
I love it.
Yeah, and Christine Sayani is at homemade_confetti, and her cat, the Colonel, she says he's more like an old man that sits around judging her than a cat. But he is a flame point Himalayan, which is like a super cool looking cat if you've never seen one of those.
Oh, yeah. So definitely go check her out. She's at homemade_confetti. So the cat has its own Instagram and it's at Colonel_fancy, spelled with a PH, _pants_ret. So yeah, he's basically famous. Probably more popular than we are, but I can't blame people for that.
Right? I mean, he's the Colonel and he's a super cool cat.
And he's fancy pants.
Yeah, right.
So I don't believe we have any corrections this week, but I do have some follow up. And if you've been following me on Instagram, you've probably seen that I got my goslings and they're freaking adorable.
Oh, they are.
Oh my God, they're so cute. And like when I was talking about ramping up and getting prepared for these goslings, I assumed they would be a lot like ducklings. But their personalities are actually very different. I'm
Ooh,
finding that they're less spastic and a little less afraid of me than
that's
the
good.
ducklings were. Yes, absolutely. Because, goslings get eventually turn into full grown geese, which are huge. And if they don't like you, it's a little intimidating.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So, if you've missed the other episodes, you'll want to go back and find those. They were recorded and dropped in April, but I got 3 Sebastopools, and one's a male, 2 girls, and then a French Toulouse and a Roman Tufted. And they all have Game of Thrones names.
I love it.
Yes. So we have Jaime Lannister, Cersei Lannister, Sansa Stark, Daenerys Targaryen, and Brienne of Tarth. So, if you're a Game of Thrones fan, you probably like super geeked over those names just like I am.
So, what do you call them for short? Because I can't imagine that you're like walking up to them and being like, Jamie Lannister,
I mean,
Cersei Lannister. Did I pronounce
yeah,
that
it's like
right? Okay.
Cersei.
Cersei.
Cersei. So, I mean, Jamie is pretty, Jamie. Cersei, Sansa. Luckily, most of them have like kind of one syllable if you don't say first name, last name. But Daenerys, I'll say Dany.
Oh, I love it.
And then Brienne will just be Brienne. So,
Yeah.
yeah. So, but it'll be interesting to see how that evolves when I start having to like yell at them or something. Kind of like with, human children. You
Yep.
really, I feel like you need to really think about the first name, middle name combination. When you give birth. I haven't done that personally, but you got to think of something that's like easy to yell, I feel.
Absolutely. I
Yeah.
agree.
Or just like even affirm, like,
So, you want to know what I do when I have to yell at things?
what?
I go, ah, ah, ah. Like, it doesn't matter whether it's human or animal or inanimate object. If it's doing something I don't like, I go, ah, ah, ah. I don't know where I got that from.
That's pretty straightforward too. So I had a little whoopsies with preparing for the arrival of these guys because the tracking information for USPS was garbage. So I didn't get tracking information until Tuesday, but allegedly they had like left the building Monday night from California. And then they didn't like pick back up on the tracking until like super like late, like 2 a.m. on Wednesday. It just said it's on track, it's on time. And it said like they were projected to arrive on Thursday. And I got a call from the post office at 6:05 a.m. on Wednesday that they're there. And I had nothing ready. So I got really excited, and I actually took that day off, and I came out of the bedroom, and my husband was like getting ready to leave for work, and I'm like, my goslings are here, like half asleep. And then I like, put pants on and started hurrying up and getting everything ready, and I was out the door to the post office at like 6:55. So I was a little excited. And then as we record this, they are still in the bathroom at my house, and we are working on putting a pen together to be in the barn that is predator and curious barn cat proof. Hopefully doing that today because they've already outgrown their little like container that I have them in now. They're pretty big, and there's 5 of them, so they need more space.
Yeah, waterfowl do grow super fast.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's that. I'm obsessed with them. I hope they'll continue to be obsessed with me. They do kind of like just settle down in your hand after a while and chill out. But it's funny because ducklings do this side eye thing and they look at you with such judgment. But goslings don't do that. They kind of extend their neck out like really straight. which is going to be super intimidating when they're like 15 pounds.
Yeah.
So we have to be friends.
Yes, you do.
And on a less happy note, I went to the barn yesterday. And for those of you that heard last week, Rose had her babies, and unfortunately, one of them either jumped out of or got kicked out of the nesting box. And I check on them every morning and night. And I checked on them at night. Everybody was good. I went out there in the morning, and one was cold and dead outside of the nesting box. And like I found little fleas on it when it was dead. So I don't know if maybe there was something wrong with it and Mama kicked him out, or if he just popped out and Mama didn't try to notice maybe and keep him warm. She's a first-time bunny mama, so I don't really know how that works because this is the first time that we've had this happen, and we've had 3 litters before this one. So that really sucked. But I wanted to share that because, like, no matter how good you think you are or how easy you think something is, because I've always said, like, bunnies are, like, stupid easy to take care of because they mostly are. Like, shit still happens. And it's sad, but you kind of learn from it. So maybe next time I won't use a nesting box that is, like, so high up where they can't get back into it. But, you know, they started getting their fur, but their eyes are still closed. So there's only so much they can do. And I can't sit there and watch them 24/7.
Yeah, they're one of the creatures that's not born, like, able to take care of themselves whatsoever.
Right. So lesson learned on that one, and it sucked. And I know that's kind of a downer after all the cute gosling talk, but like we said, we like to keep it real and let you know when shit happens, and, you know, think through ways that we can prevent shit from happening later, you know. So lesson learned, maybe tinier nesting box lower to the ground.
And maybe we'll learn that tinier nesting box doesn't necessarily make a difference either. Mother Nature is like, farming is one of those things that just, like, reminds you that there is a lot of stuff that you can control, but there's so much that you can't.
Right.
Like, so much.
Right. Yeah, and I think the avian leucosis reared its ugly head again, too, because one of our chickens died last week, too. And she was one that was about that age where it might or might not kick in. So I don't know if it was that or what, but it doesn't appear that it was contagious or anything. So that's my guess.
What is the age that it kicks in?
So it can be like, I'm picking up on, like, it's got a dormancy period of like probably like 5 or 6 months.
Okay.
Or it takes that long for it to go, and we kind of go through a cycle, it seems like, because I think it was last May when I found out, last May, June, when I got the results for Flash, that's what it was.
Yeah.
And it seems like every 5 or 6 months we go through a batch of chickens just dying because it's spread through chicken sex and it's spread through mom to chick through the hatching process. So we actually lost one a couple weeks ago too that was hatched by Betty White. And it was about that time. It was about 6 months. So, you know, you can try to breed immunity in your flock, but and that's something that we're going to try to do slowly. But it's going to suck because some of them just won't make it. And I'm sure there's some people out there that ethically think that that's not cool. You can't do that. But at this point, this is kind of, you know, what I'm set up with. I can't introduce new birds without putting them at risk. So if I can try to breed immunity, I will. But like I said, we're going to do that like slowly over time, not in large batches.
Yeah.
Because most of the flock's doing great. I mean, we got over 70 birds. I don't know how many we actually have. And most of them are doing just fine. So it's like they can live with it.
Yeah.
But yeah, so people of the listenership, don't hate me. If you disagree with my methods, please.
I mean, we get to pick what our tolerance can be for
Yeah.
things, just like other people get to pick what their tolerance is. That's a part of it.
Yeah. And sadly, like, I didn't cry when I found the dead baby bunny. I didn't cry when my husband told me about the dead bird. Um, it's like obviously I'm like somber in that moment, but like if those things would have happened a year ago, I'd probably be bawling my eyes out. So I don't ever want to get to the point where I'm like completely numb to these things happening, but I think there's a time where you come to accept that it's just part of the game, part of this whole farming thing. And you can have like a moment of somberness and reverence for that animal and not lose your mind, and it's okay.
Yeah.
And that is the end of Sam's Death Corner. And yeah, now I'm going to drink.
I'll drink to that. If I wasn't sitting on my pod couch, I would pour one out for them.
But that'd just make a big mess, and nobody wants that.
Yeah, I'm going to refrain.
Yeah.
But it did make you laugh, so there you go.
Yeah. It's the thought that counts. Do you feel overwhelmed by the choices, or maybe even the lack of choices, of chicken first aid supplies, treats, and other chicken keeping items?
Have you ever stood in your favorite feed store and felt completely confused, not sure what to try without it being a total waste of money?
We have the perfect solution to this problem. Just subscribe to the monthly chicken keeping box, Henny and Rue.
Henny and Rue makes it easy to get products not available at your local feed store, build your poultry first aid kit, try new treats and coop items, keep your flock healthy and happy, and enjoy carefully selected chicken-themed gifts for yourself or to give to someone else you love that loves chickens too.
The products are hand-selected by the founder of Henny and Rue, who is a chicken keeper herself, so you know the products have been tested by someone who knows what they're doing. So treat your chickens and yourself by going to hennyandrue.com and subscribing today.
Need a last-minute gift for Mother's Day? Henny and Rue is the perfect gift for the chicken keeper in your life. You can pre-buy 3, 6, or 12 months, or you can subscribe to pay monthly.
So go to hennyandrue.com and use code DRINKANDFARM to get 15% off your first subscription box.
So I did something kind of exciting this weekend.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, I got over my fear of A, inviting people to my farm, and B, children, and volunteered to teach my daughter's Girl Scout troop the lessons they need for their gardening badge. Hooray!
Hooray! But you have a fear of children? Don't you have children?
So I do. I have children. I'm not afraid of the children themselves.
Okay.
You know how you meet those people and they just like radiate something that makes like children drawn to them and they like know how to respond to them and interact with them?
Yeah.
I don't have that.
I don't think I have it either. Maybe that's why we get along so well. I don't have that.
Kudos to those people that have that, because sometimes I wish I had that, because most of the time I feel like a deer in headlights when I'm standing in front of a big group of children.
Same. Even like a child that I don't know, like true story, at my last job a couple years ago, this lady that I didn't really know would bring her child in and go cubicle to cubicle, like having the kids say hi, and I would hear her approaching and I would legit run to the bathroom because the situation made me so freaking uncomfortable, because it's like, I don't know what to say to your kid.
Yeah.
Most of the time when I try to talk to them, they look at me like I have 3 heads. Because I either try to do like the overly like, oh, hi, or I try to talk to them like an adult, and neither goes well. So I think I'm just trying too hard. But
yeah, they can sense it.
Yes, they sense my fear.
Well, and I have that same fear. And one of the things that I've been really trying to figure out is like, I want to get involved in our community.
Mm-hmm.
One of the cool things about living in such a small town is I feel like you have a greater ability to make an impact, because there's not as many people. So the things that you do can tend to reach like a bigger percentage of the people that are in your community.
Right.
And putting myself out there doesn't exactly come naturally to me. Besides this podcast, I usually am like a behind the scenes kind of person.
Mm-hmm.
And my husband is the one that's like really outgoing and everybody like knows and loves him. Like,
Yeah, I know that. I know that feeling too.
right? Like everybody at the kids' school like knows him and calls him for stuff and like talks to him about things. And I'm like, hi, I'm over here too. Like, I promise I want to be involved. I don't know how.
Yeah, I totally get that.
So I just like sucked it up and I was looking at the Aurora just recently joined Girl Scouts. It was maybe towards the beginning of the year, so it hasn't been that long. And I was flipping through the badges and I saw the garden badge. Ding, ding, ding. That's the thing I think I can do.
Okay.
So I won't go into the boring parts of like what they need to earn the badge, but I thought it would be fun to share about how I prepped for starting a garden from scratch for 6 kindergartners and first graders, because you guys, you have no idea how hard it is to do stuff with kids when it doesn't come naturally to you. There are some people that are going to really relate to this, and there are others that are just like rolling their eyes like, what? Why do you guys have trouble with this? I don't understand.
And we envy you.
We
We envy you, eye rollers, so hard.
So much.
But we're hoping that you can see it. Put yourselves in our awkward muck boots for a minute.
Yeah. So I started out with some pretty like wild and grand plans.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. My original idea was that each girl was going to pick her own seeds from an array that I curated from her favorite flowers and vegetables. I can't say this without laughing.
Sorry. I can't not laugh at this.
They were going to space the seeds and plant them all themselves individually.
Mm-hmm.
They were going to make their own garden markers and draw the plants on them.
Oh, wow.
And each girl was going to have a dedicated space that was hers.
Mm-hmm.
And they were going to mulch it in while I proselytized about how important mulch is to keep down weeds and keep plants hydrated.
Okay. That sounds like a solid plan, Beverly, that I could not even follow. And I'm an adult.
Well, like I had this like picture in my head of like it was going to be sunshiny and there were going to be rainbows in the background and butterflies flying by and the kids were going to be super excited about gardening. Well, spoiler alert, that was not what happened. And that would have never worked, like even in a perfect world.
Right.
Because like, have you ever met a first grader?
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Yeah, they have the attention span of a squirrel.
Yes. I actually think squirrels might have larger spans of attention than a first grader at moments.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I'm saying this as someone. Aurora has ADHD, so like take her squirrel attention span and then like cut it into like a quarter of that.
Yeah, Soren has some of that stuff too, and yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I was really only going to have like 10 minutes of their attention if I was lucky.
Oh.
I mean, and that's like if I was super lucky. I don't even think I got 10 minutes. Who am I kidding? I mean, in my defense, though, it did end up raining yesterday. So even the plan, even like my pared down plan, didn't end up really working.
Okay.
But this was what I ended up planning for, because after like picturing all of that in my head and realizing that this isn't the Sound of Music and that was not going to be the way that this went.
Yes.
I made them all seed mats ahead of time. And what I did was I properly placed the seeds on the seed mats and glued them down with a mix of flour and water. It wasn't anything complicated. I just mixed it to a consistency that I thought would make the seeds stick. So there's no like recipe or like rules to follow.
Okay.
Yeah, I made a template and laid the paper towels on top of them, and I flipped over the seed packet and I was like, all right, these can be spaced 1 inch apart. So I used the 1 inch spaces, or these can be 3 inches apart. It made it super easy.
Oh, good.
And then I laid them all out on the table, and I also made the plant markers myself. I just used my label maker. Nothing was drawn or hand painted onto them. And one of the leaders and I placed the mats. I was going to at least let the girls carry the mats out there and place them. But with it raining and the wind blowing a little bit, we were like,
Oh,
we're going to end up with seeds like everywhere. And all this hard
yeah.
work is going to go to waste. So she and I placed them and just like sprinkled a little bit of dirt on them so that they stayed down.
Mm-hmm.
And we put the plant markers down for them because we wanted to make sure that as they grew, the girls would know which plants were which.
Okay.
Because we thought
Yeah.
that would be really important.
Mm-hmm.
And all the girls did was sprinkle the dirt on top of the mats and water them. I ended up mulching the whole bed in, and I added like some tomato plants that I've been growing and some pepper plants and a couple of other things.
Oh, fun.
Yeah, that was how it went.
So it sounds like you did most of the work, but they got to help in their own little way.
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, this wasn't meant to be like a rant about how bad children suck at gardening because it's not how I intended at all.
Right.
But Mother's Day is coming up this weekend, and I wanted to share like how hard it was to get the kids properly involved in something farming related because I don't have the knack for it.
Mm-hmm.
If someone else feels that way, like they don't feel like such a mom failure.
Right. Yeah. Especially when they're not your kids.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, Aurora was the only one that was mine. The other 5 kids that were there weren't mine. And like, you know, we already talked about how rough that is. And you have the
Yes.
same situation because you have stepkids that you only see every few weeks, you know, if you're lucky.
Yeah, it's supposed to be every other week, but they're getting older now. So it's like they want to do things like birthday parties, or the older girl, she wants to babysit so she can earn some money. And, you know, we don't want to discourage that. So we try to be flexible, but that usually means because they're on the other side of the state that we don't see them as often. So it's hard for me from that perspective, one, because I don't have the same kind of patience for them because I did not carry them in my body. I was not around when they were little and cute. Um, so getting them involved is kind of hard from that perspective. But I also think about like my niece and nephew, who I don't see as often either, but they're at least like biologically linked to me in some way. And I can't imagine getting them to like plant anything. But my sister-in-law does such a good job with them with like these really messy art projects. I look at them and think they're messy. She probably looks at it and thinks it's no big deal. But she seems to me like one of those moms that is just like super good about doing activities and stuff. And I feel like if I ever gave birth to my own children, I'd kind of probably be more like my mom. And this is not a knock on my mom at all, because I understand now why we didn't do certain things as a stepmom. But she was, not that she wasn't involved at all, but she would do things that were a little more practical, that wouldn't create more messy cleanup work for her. But we were involved in different ways. Like I would help her plant the garden and do like really cool stuff like flower pots and things like that. But I was also like, you know, preteen teenager when I did that. So, you know, not a first grader.
Well, it's really easy to like scroll through your Instagram or your social media feeds and see what you perceive as super parents, like doing all of these
Yes.
awesome things that you wish you had the patience and ability to do. But it's not easy for all of us to figure out like how to properly get kids involved in things, like whether they're our own biologically or not, because they all have their own different personalities. And like we have our levels of what's what I'm looking for, like tolerance for things.
Tolerance was what I was just going to say. Yeah.
The mess thing, I can totally relate with that. I'll never forget. I had this idea that I was going to make Christmas cookies with all the neighborhood kids when we lived in Arizona, like sugar cookies, and they were going to frost them and put sprinkles and stuff on them. There were still sprinkles on the floor when we moved out.
Oh my God.
And I'm pretty sure that the floor was replaced in between when we made those cookies and when we moved. Those types of things, like they can get like really overwhelming for me. And I'm just looking at it and it's just chaos and I can't like think through the chaos.
Yeah. And I think part of it for me too is that some of these things, like me and you both work full time and jobs can be very stressful. And for me, the farming part is very sacred and it's like a safe space for me. And I think a lot of that is because it's something that's mine. It's my hobby, and I grew up, going down to my grandparents' farm, so it's a very like home feeling, and I don't want anything to come in and disturb that, which might sound really selfish, but from a mental health perspective, sometimes it's easier for me to just go muck out the barn by myself, which we did yesterday, and it was very gross because we did deep litter, and I think I'm swearing off deep litter in the barn now. Oh my God, it's horrible.
That one cleanup is super tough, but imagine cleaning it all up in your snow gear while it was negative 40.
I don't know. It smelled
That sucks too.
So bad. I was gagging, which makes me think we probably did it wrong, but it was so bad. But when I was done, I felt like super accomplished and like better afterwards. But if I was trying to get one of my stepkids in there with a pitchfork, like kind of quote unquote helping, oh, I would have been even more irritated by the whole thing. So it's like, I think for me, some of that's just, it's something that's mine that I don't want to share. And maybe I'd feel differently if they were here more often and I could consistently have them involved. But I feel like I get some of that like stepmom guilt because I don't have that level of bonding with them though. And I think it's great if other stepmoms can have that with their stepchildren and really feel like they're, valued as the stepmom or the bonus mom. I'm just not there yet based on our current situation. And I feel like it's really easy to feel stepmom shamed or mom guilt from that. So I feel like I just went on a journey with that conversation. But I'm hoping somebody else that's listening can relate to that or take something away from that so they don't feel as guilty or shameful in having things that are their own. End rant. Drink beer.
Well, and you know what? I'm glad that you used that word shame, because this is going to sound really strange. I've been listening to this book. It's called Daring Greatly. And she talks a lot about shame and how shame like really makes us feel and doesn't like do anything to actually help us or help any of the things that we're trying to work on. Like when you feel shame, it's impossible to like move forward and make anything better or make any progress on anything.
Right.
Because you're like stuck in like the shame cycle. So I won't like go into the book really far because we're talking about farming stuff. But I will put a link to the book in the show notes in case anybody else wants to listen to it. But like for myself, it took me a while when we first got here to get the kids involved because like when the baby chicks came, like I didn't know what I was doing myself. So like the idea of letting the kids hold them like terrified me.
Right.
Because I was afraid to hold them. We made a little bit of progress here on getting some stuff. Like I do muck out the barn with the kids, but it's not like this wonderful like hi ho moment where everybody's like swinging pitchforks together and like cleaning up the mess. It's usually me like with my hands on my hips like standing in the middle of it like barking out orders like how to do it properly, because if I don't, it won't get done right, and then we run the risk of animals getting sick or because something ends up festering there instead of it being cleaned out properly. And so there's a lot of like responsibility that goes along with this too. So like one of the things or one of the pieces of advice that I've been given and can pass along when you want to get kids involved the right way is to like set your own proper expectations. So like mucking the barn is a good example. Like let them go do it and then just go in afterwards and check their work and finish it up.
Right.
Because it's not going to be done right the first time. Like that's just the way that it goes. And then another thing too is like to give them age appropriate tasks and like age appropriate tools to finish those tasks. Like with the garden, like I originally wanted to have the kids like all individually place seeds and stuff. I don't even do that when I'm planting the garden by seed. Like I just sprinkle them. Why was I expecting a bunch of first graders to be able to do that? Like that wasn't setting them up for success. Those expectations were like way too high for them. And seeds are tiny and they're fine motor skills. And I mean, yeah.
I know.
People that know things about kids know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. I mean, I think the same thing too. Like when I tried to plant my first garden out here and just ended up growing a bunch of weeds, really. Like the seed spacing drove me insane. Like I can't even imagine.
Yeah, thin. Although I used to be afraid to thin. Like I felt guilty pulling up plants. Like I was like murdering them by not giving them the chance to like figure out who can thrive and who can't. But now I thin pretty ruthlessly. So
Oh, look at you go.
yeah, it's like a practice thing. And yeah, so and another thing too that I've done here is I've just like I have this problem where I like to picture things in my head and I get like really disappointed when they don't turn out that way. And gardening was one of those things for me because I really thought Aurora would love working in like the vegetable garden with me and doing stuff, but it turns out she hates getting her hands dirty.
Oh, that's so funny for like a kid.
I know. I think for her, because she's got the ADHD and she also has oppositional defiance disorder. Parents that deal with that also will know exactly what that means. So like I think that she also might have like some sensory things because like the stuff being caked on her hands, she just like doesn't like the way it feels. So instead of trying to like force her to do it so that I can have that like mom and daughter gardening moment that I picture in my head, I bought her some fairy garden stuff and she sets up her fairy garden things while I plant the seeds and mulch. So we're still working together in the garden and we're creating something that we can both be proud of and are excited about, but it's not like encroaching on her things that she doesn't like.
Right, because if she's gonna be out there and you're, allowing, I don't want to say allowing, but trying to find a way for you both to enjoy it together, I think it's really cool that you found something that works well for both of you that isn't gonna like tick either of you off, like in a huge way.
Yeah, because, and I'm with you on like, this was like my thing that I was like really excited about. I mean, like the kids are excited about like the animal parts and stuff, but this farm was really like my third baby.
Oh, yeah.
So I am a little selfish about like some parts of it because they were like for my mental health. So yeah, but the garden was one of those things that I thought we could like, work together as a family. And so it's been hard to figure out how to still make some of that work, but
it's a balance.
It's not perfect.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like an ever evolving thing.
Exactly. And you know what? Maybe as Aurora gets older too, and she sees you and how hard you're working at it, and maybe she'll want a pair of gardening gloves and be able to jump in and help you in a couple of years. That might evolve too based on them watching you.
That's true. It's a good hope.
Yeah.
But we wanted to have this conversation because we wanted to just like, I don't know, share a little more personally about ourselves and like our struggles, like familial farm struggles.
Yeah. Keep it real and just hope that moms and stepmoms, can give each other a break. Like if a super mom that does all these Pinterest worthy crafts with their children, maybe you don't give the side eye to the mom that's, giving their kids McDonald's,
Yeah.
for their school lunch. I don't know why that popped in my head.
Well, because food shaming is like real. People do really food shame each other. And I have been guilty of that. I'll totally raise my hand and say, because I am a food snob. We've talked about this before.
Yes.
I don't remember what episode, but if you've listened to them all, you'll remember me saying that.
Yeah. But, just to give, as women, to give each other breaks and to try to lift each other up and put each other's muck boots on or even maybe your Louboutins. I don't know what you wear. But, maybe just have a little more grace for each other in these situations, and it's for you not to feel as shameful about, maybe being a little selfish about certain things for your own reasons, or, maybe something not going the way you planned. So, you know what? For Mother's Day, just give yourself an effing break.
Yep.
Cheers to that.
Let's face it, we're harder on ourselves than anyone else can possibly be on us.
Oh, for sure.
So this is us telling you that we have those same struggles.
Yes. And that's why we drink while we farm things.
Yes, yes. All right. So it's time for our We Can't Even corner.
Woo! Heck yeah. So, Bev, what can't you even about this week?
So I can't even get over the fact that a man left his back gate open and found 200 sheep invaded his yard.
Oh, no.
Did you hear about this?
No, I did not.
So in the city of Lincoln, California, There's this couple, they're the Russos. They live with their kids. And sheep sightings have become pretty common in the area because the city employs livestock to clear out the overgrowth. Because overgrowth contributes to wildfires.
Okay.
In a moment of oversight, the family figured out that the grazing sheep are far from sheepish.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, I stole that straight from the article that I will link to in the show notes. They opened their back gate so they could give their daughters a better view of the sheep because once a year they graze for only 2 or 3 days. And they had never heard of them crossing over into anybody's yard. But the curious sheep would like peek their heads over the back gate, but then would scamper off as soon as they saw them. And then when they left their back gate open, it turns out one came in, and then a dozen came in, and then suddenly hundreds of them were packed in their backyard. And the best part of this is this was caught on video. So if you click on the link in the show notes, you can watch the video of it. And
Oh my God.
it's pretty incredible.
I'm going to have to do that. Yes.
So when they tried to corral them out, they would only shift to like other parts of the yard. But others were continuing to flood in through the gate.
Oh no.
So before they knew it, like their whole backyard was like filled like brim to brim with sheep. And I already said this part, but that's all right. Luckily for the internet, the husband caught the stampede on camera, and he has a hilarious narration with it. He was trying to like shout at them, hoping that they would get the message and leave, but the animals were just like totally ignoring him. So in between fits of laughter, he tried everything from making sheep noises himself to shouting, "Get off my lawn." But his wife was not nearly as amused about it as he was. She said that she was actually really nervous and she thought it was urgent that they get the sheep out of the yard, which, I mean, we've all seen hooves. Like, I can see why she felt that way because they can do a lot of damage to like your stuff and your lawn.
Yeah, and 200 pounds, 200 sheep is a lot of poop.
Yeah, that's
too.
a lot of poop. Yeah, and I mean,
Yeah.
sheep aren't gonna not poop on your lawn because you have like a I don't know, like a thing on it that says no pooping on the lawn.
Yes,
like they don't care.
Exactly.
So while her husband was trying to chase the sheep out, she was grabbing her kids to get them to safety. They have 2 daughters. One is 4 and one is 5. And they just thought the whole thing was hilarious. And they got to watch it from like a back window. And I don't blame her for being worried they were going to get trampled because like, yeah, I would have been the exact same way.
Yeah.
At one point, they were finally able to get some of the sheep out, but there were still a bunch wandering around the backyard. So the wife grabbed her kids like play a tambourine and started jumping up and down on the trampoline, making a ton of noise to try to scare them out. And it eventually worked.
Oh, hey.
Yeah. So needless to say, they no longer leave their back gate open when the sheep are grazing.
Yes, that is probably a good choice.
Yeah. But I saw that on the internet and I just thought that was hilarious. Everybody's commenting on it like, I wouldn't mind if 200 sheep showed up in my backyard. I mean, I live on almost 12 acres and 200 sheep would worry me in my backyard.
Oh, for sure.
So I can only imagine like in a California suburb what that must have looked like.
Oh yeah, especially if you're not used to being around livestock. Like,
So what can't you even get over this week?
So I feel like I'm kind of cheating because I picked 2 things. But the first one is pretty short and it's kind of hard to explain if you don't just watch it. So we'll link to the YouTube video in the show notes. But if you haven't seen the woman having a dance off with an alpaca yet, you need to. Basically a woman like prances around and by this like group of alpacas, and then an alpaca tries to upstage her with even more extravagant like jumping and running moves. So you're probably like hearing me describe this and you're like, that's probably really stupid, but you should go watch it because it's really funny.
I saw it and I showed it to my husband and then I showed him a picture of it was a Lanknos Barnyards photos on Instagram.
Yeah.
She just sheared her alpacas this week and I showed her a
So
picture of
cool.
a freshly shorn alpaca and I was like, see, this is why we need alpacas. And he just looked
Yes.
at me. He didn't say any words, but
He's like, you finally got your donkey, pump the brakes. You have room though.
we do. And I'm tired of mowing. So what else can't you even get over this week?
There's this new show on ABC called Bless This Mess. And again, if you haven't seen this show, you probably should. And it's like, honestly, everything I want in a show to watch while relaxing after a long day of work. And I think it's perfection because it's funny and it hits home. Because the premise is like a city couple deciding to move to a farm that's in the family. And they've totally romanticized this idea of like a simpler life. And then they come to deal with the realities of country life in a very funny way that's pretty lighthearted. And my mom said, yeah, when I saw that preview, I thought of you and Matt. Like, I grew up like in the country around my grandparents' dairy farm. My husband, probably a city slicker the whole time he grew up. So I was just doing a little research on the show. And while I was Googling, I found this article on CNN from the entertainment section about Bless This Mess and politics and how, you know, Bless This Mess can't go back to the day of like Green Acres. And honestly, like we'll link to this article in the show notes. Maybe you'll agree with this guy. Maybe you won't. But personally, I think this gentleman can go F himself. Seriously. Because he's salty because they're not showcasing the political difference between New York City and Nebraska for a show that hadn't even started airing when the article was written. For a show that's only 20 minutes after commercials. And honestly, from my perspective, if your biggest concern about this like 20-minute comedic show is that there's not enough political realness in it, is an issue for you, I think you are part of the problem and clearly why we can't have nice things. You, sir, are the type of person that creates division. Because I'm sure your idea of appropriate representation of a red state and of farm life would not be a fair representation of reality. And speaking of reality, this isn't a reality show. It's a sitcom. Politics absolutely do not need to be in every single TV show. And you, sir, can have a seat because you are a fun ruiner. And I will end my rant there. That is purely my opinion. But honestly, I see enough politics on Facebook. I don't need it in the sitcom that makes me laugh and helps me unplug from the real world. So he can go F himself.
So because you posted this in the show notes yesterday, I was telling Jared about it. And he's like, oh, we can totally get that because we have Hulu. So he's like, let's watch a couple episodes tonight. So we did while I was typing up on the show notes.
Oh, good.
We watched a couple episodes, and I hate to admit how much this show actually like resonates with me because
right?
There are a few of those moments that I feel we have definitely experienced here. And I've only watched the first 2 episodes.
Yes.
I like to think that my husband and I are just like a little more useful. That's the word I wrote down, but I don't know if that's really the right word. But, you know, like we have a little more like working knowledge, I think.
Yes.
You know.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And like as what I would describe as almost literally the living example of what the show sounds like, I can say that no one has asked Jared or I what our politics are. Like no
Interesting.
one. No one has.
Interesting.
We've had like conversations about it, and you were there for one of them with some of our friends.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we have like had a couple of like over dinner or over drinks conversations with people, but they were like civil and human.
Oh my God, yeah. Like that one that we had was incredibly civil and kind of like refreshingly nice to be able to air your opinion in a respectful way and not feel shut down by the other person.
Yeah. And it's a good reminder that like stereotypic beliefs aren't necessarily the truth of it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, like to automatically assume that everybody in Nebraska is going to be more conservative than the people from New York. It's just, it's like a parody.
Right.
To say that, because you can't say that about people. People are complicated and they may feel one way on one issue than they do another. But that's totally besides the point. Like if he had actually watched the show and waited until it came out, and and like saw an episode, like I think it's the second episode, they do actually touch on some of like I don't know if it's necessarily like, I wouldn't say it's a political difference, but like a difference in like process or what like the difference between your idea of farming and like actual practical farming would be. And I'll just kind of sum it up a little bit. But Dax, I can't remember the characters' names because I've only watched 2 episodes, but Dax Shepard tells his neighbor that he's going to do no-till farming and that he should give it a try. And his neighbor pretty much says like, why don't you go to ag school and spend 30 years farming and then tell me how to farm my fields? I can see why his neighbor is angry about being given farming advice by like what he sees as a New York yuppie. But at the same time, I don't think it's outside the realm of possibility to think that a degree in ag is different than it was 30 years ago. So it was a good, I don't know, it was a good reminder that there are people that aren't willing to take new information and that there are new ideas out there, but like that idea might not actually work in their area of Nebraska. So like, who knows whether till or no-till farming is like the right way for their plot of land.
Exactly.
But they totally tackled like what I would see as a contentious issue. But maybe I only see it as contentious because I actually know like a smidge about farming.
Right.
Like I would say a scotch.
And like I highly doubt the guy that wrote this article has any idea what it takes to do any of the stuff that you see in that episode.
Yeah.
And you know what? He is an entertainment writer, so maybe he did get like, you know, access to see the full show before he wrote that article. But honestly, like, I think it's really narrow-minded to think that anybody in a red state or that even considers themselves a conservative is running around with, you know, racist ideologies and their Make America Great hat on. I think that's incredibly narrow-minded that you're pigeonholing like a whole group of people to that one stereotype. So shame on you for making this really broad stroke over a TV show. Like, come on. Was it a slow news day for you, sir? Because I think it was.
I mean, it totally might have been.
Yeah.
But
he poked the wrong bear.
Yeah.
I'm glad you can watch it because I told my mom, I was like, you have to be watching this if you're not already. Because, well, my mom was telling me about that other farm show that's on the History Channel that I don't have access to anymore because we pulled the plug on DirecTV. Now we just have a few streaming services. And my mom was telling me that she couldn't watch that show anymore because it was too, it's almost like because she grew up on the dairy farm and they also did like corn and other crops. It basically is like a very real reality of like the struggle of that. And it was almost like she was having like PTSD moments from the anxiety of not knowing if like you were going to break even or make money or anything like that.
Yeah.
From farming. She's like, it's too real for me. So if that show was a little too intense for you, which I think that show on the History Channel is a great way to open other people's eyes to what's really happening in the farm industry so they can care a little more or just be a little more, you know, knowledgeable. This is like total separate end of the spectrum where it's funny. And obviously it's a 20-minute sitcom. So,
well, yeah. And I love what they did with it because I feel like there is a lot of romanticizing about what it's like to like move out and do this stuff. Like when we sat down to record, I sat down, we hadn't hit record yet. I put on my headphones and Sam starts talking. I look down and I'm like, I'm pretty sure I have shit on me. I mean, it's not human shit, so it's not like crazy gross, but it's some mystery animal shit. And like that's the reality. Like
Exactly.
But if you were to just look at social media or pictures, you would think it was all cuddling cute baby animals.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Because that's like what I actually post like 90% of the time is like super adorable pictures of like Mr. Shelby, the cat that's not my cat, riding around on my shoulders as I do chores. You don't see me chasing around ducks, trying to get them back in their freaking cage because they think the sun's up for another hour. I'm not going in. I'm going to be an asshole. And Mr. Shelby's on my shoulder, and I'm holding on to him while I'm running to chase these ducks around. And it's probably like people driving by probably are like, what the heck is wrong with this lady? And it's like, and then yesterday trying to get them in there, and one of the ducks like ran in so fast, and we had just power washed their rocks off because they were very duck poopy. So she like slammed her little feet into the mud, and shit water just went right into my mouth. That's the reality of farm life. Yeah. So I appreciate this show very much, and I hope other people enjoy it too. So if you're not watching it, I can't even handle how cute this is, and I couldn't even handle like how ignorant this writer was. So this concludes We Can't Even for episode 61.
So we don't have a farm story this week, but we're going to read an iTunes review. And this iTunes review is from Sir Clucks-a-Lot, which that's like the greatest iTunes name ever. I mean, I don't know.
It really
There's
is.
been a lot of really great iTunes names that we've seen on here. So what this person says is, what a hoot. I have so much fun with you ladies. I honestly feel like we are all friends hanging out, and y'all are super honest and informative, which I love. As a hobby homesteader considering a leap into a more serious direction, I love hearing about the good, the bad, and the ugly of farm life. Cheers, ladies. Keep it up.
Love it. I love those reviews so much. They just warm my heart.
Oh, yes, me too.
Time for housekeeping. Housekeeping!
Coop camp dates have been announced, June 7th through 9th. There is a link in the show notes.
Yes, and we will be there. And if you're not, you will be square, I guess. But let us know if you're going, because we also have a Facebook group, We Drink and We Farm Things. So you should just let us know in that group if you're going, or send us a message, because we want to meet you while we're there. So let us know.
Yeah, and take our survey. Give us anonymous feedback. There's a link to that in the show notes.
And we just read one wonderful review from one of our iTunes listeners. So go ahead and review us in all the places, because we might read one of those on the show. And if you really like us, download the episode when you listen and hit that subscribe button.
We sell merch. There's a link to both shops in the show notes. We have some awesome stuff that Sam makes that's in our shop that's on our website. But then we also have some shirts and hoodies and camping mugs and a couple of other things made by this really great company. And they're super great quality, and they totally support the show. So go check those out if you're in need of some drinking and farming merch.
We have a hashtag. Use hashtag drink and farm on Instagram anytime you are drinking something you love and farming safely. No drinking and using farm equipment. We share them in our stories every week, and on Tuesdays and Thursdays you will see those in our feed. So this is your community, and we want to share you with each other. So make sure you're using that hashtag.
And thanks for listening, guys. We appreciate you coming and joining us. And happy Mother's Day to all the moms and stepmoms and anyone who has anything to do with children out there. We hope that you enjoyed this episode and you feel a better connection with us.
Yeah.
Or maybe you hate us. I don't know.
Maybe.
Probably
Judgy
not.
McJudgersons can, you know where the door is. But we love you anyways.
That's right. So drink,
Farm,
and give zero clucks. Bye, guys.
Bye.
We drink things, we farm things, we drink and farm things.